with his hand, brushed it so that it whizzed by my nose. And
before the world knew her as a legend, Meryl Streep knew love in its most fragile, devastating form. Long before the Oscars, the iconic speeches, and the praise that followed her like a shadow, she fell deeply for a man whose brilliance burned fast and ended far too soon. That man was John Cazale, an actor whose entire filmography became history, and whose life became a wound Meryl carried quietly for decades. Their love story wasn't glamorous or dramatic. It was raw, intimate, and heartbreakingly human. And the moment he left the world, a part of her was forced to grow in a way no actress ever could through craft alone. But to understand the depth of what she lost, we must begin long before their hearts ever met. John Cazale's early life. John Cazale's life began in movement, cities, homes, and circumstances shifting beneath his feet as if preparing him for a life of fleeting moments. Born in Massachusetts, he spent his youth moving constantly, carrying with him a quiet melancholy and a deep inner world. From the beginning, acting wasn't a hobby, it was a lifeline, a place where he could shape pain into purpose. His studies at Oberlin College and Boston University sharpened that instinct, giving him the tools to mold emotion with surgical precision. But even then, the world had no idea a master was forming, and fate would soon place in his path a friend who would change his life, and cinema, forever. A fateful friendship with Al Pacino. Some friendships are written before destiny even begins. John Cazale and Al Pacino met not on a glamorous film set, but while delivering messages for Standard Oil. Two young men with little but dreamers' hearts and empty pockets. They performed together at night, absorbing applause as if it were oxygen, pushing each other to dig deeper, feel harder, act truer. Pacino instantly recognized something extraordinary in John, a gravity, a gentleness, a vulnerability no other actor possessed. Their bond became unbreakable, a partnership that would later carry them through some of cinema's greatest masterpieces. And one of those masterpieces was waiting just around the corner. The Godfather Breakthrough. John's life changed the night casting director Fred Roos saw him on stage and felt something electric. He wasn't looking for John, but John was impossible to ignore. Soon after, Cazale was cast as Fredo Corleone in The Godfather, the timid and overlooked brother in one of filmmaking's most powerful families. The role could have been forgettable in lesser hands. But John infused Fredo with such trembling humanity that audiences felt his heart break before he even spoke. His fearful sobbing over his wounded father became one of the most haunting moments in the film. Hollywood took notice, and Fredo's story and John's talent were about to deepen in ways no one expected. The expanded genius of Fredo in Part 2, when The Godfather Part Astropas arrived. Francis Ford Coppola expanded Fredo's arc, trusting John with emotional territory rarely given to supporting actors. The iconic "I was passed over" confession became a cinematic earthquake, seated, shaking, and surrendering years of invisible pain. John delivered a performance so raw that critics described it as genius, historic, and silence-breaking. His terror during Michael's kiss of betrayal remains one of the most unforgettable images in film. But John wasn't done carving his name into Hollywood's subconscious. Not even close. Dog Day Afternoon and Cazale's growing legacy. Pacino insisted John join him in Dog Day Afternoon, even though Cazale didn't match the real-life figure he was meant to portray. Once again, John stole scenes with barely any dialogue. His improvised Wyoming line became iconic. A flash of humor in a film soaked in tension. Another Best Picture nomination followed. Another masterpiece. Another affirmation that John wasn't just good. He was magnetic. And soon, He would meet someone whose brilliance matched his own in a way that neither of them was prepared for. When Meryl Streep and John Cazale met, their meeting felt like a collision of two destinies. On stage in Shakespeare's Measure for Measure, John watched Meryl Streep perform and whispered to Pacino, "I've just met the greatest actress in the world." She saw in him a sensitivity that few men possessed, a softness wrapped in quiet sorrow. They began dating almost immediately, falling into a rhythm of partnership that felt as natural as breathing. It wasn't glamorous, it was real. Two artists fueled by passion, honesty, and an unspoken understanding of each other's inner storms. But their love, like John's career, would soon face a test as brutal as it was unexpected. A love built on art, loyalty, and depth. Meryl and John moved in together, creating a small sanctuary filled with scripts, laughter, and the mutual fear of a world that often demanded too much from artists. They supported each other's dreams, memorized lines together, and built a bond rooted in devotion rather than fame. Friends said they were inseparable, two people whose souls recognized each other long before words could. John's presence softened Meryl, and Meryl's fire steadied John. But just as their future seemed bright, life intervened with heartbreaking force. The devastating diagnosis. On the eve of starring in Agamemnon, John collapsed. Doctors delivered the blow no artist, no lover, no human heart can prepare for: terminal lung cancer. The man who had filled rooms with quiet intensity was suddenly fighting to stay alive. Meryl became his strength, refusing to leave his side. Industry pressure grew, but she wouldn't break. Not for a moment. And as John battled illness, the world of cinema would witness a final act of loyalty that still echoes through Hollywood today. Meryl Streep's fierce protection of Cazale. When Universal Pictures discovered John's condition during pre-production of The Deer Hunter, executives wanted to fire him. They feared insurance costs. They feared delays. They didn't fear breaking his spirit. But Meryl did. She threatened to quit the film on the spot, making it clear that where John went, she went. Robert De Niro stepped in and personally funded John's insurance, ensuring he remained in the cast. It was an act of solidarity that defined an entire generation of actors. But John's final performance would become more than a role. It would become a goodbye. The Deer Hunter and his final performance. John filmed The Deer Hunter while dying, his body weaker each day, his spirit somehow burning brighter. Scenes were shot around his condition, adjusted to keep him going. Cazale poured what remained of his strength into every moment. His final scenes carry a heaviness that audiences still feel decades later. He never saw the finished film. And when the lights finally dimmed, Meryl was the one holding him as he slipped away. The final goodbye. In March 1978, John Cazale took his final breath with Meryl sitting beside him, clutching his hand. According to those present, when the doctor said he was gone, John opened his eyes one last time, just long enough to whisper, "It's all right, Meryl. It's all right." The words broke her. The grief was so consuming she could barely stand. And yet, Hollywood wasn't done pulling her into the light or into even deeper emotional pain. The aftermath. Dustin Hoffman approached Meryl with an offer. Kramer versus Kramer. He admitted the truth. Her real grief would elevate the film's emotional power. It was exploitative, selfish, and strangely accurate. Her performance was devastating, authentic, undeniable. She won her first Oscar. But behind the glory was a wound that never truly healed. And through her career, one man's influence continued to shape her choices, her method, her soul.